How can we help people create better lives for themselves while at the same time improving the lives of animals? Well, the Cape of Good Hope SPCA has partnered with global speaker John Sanei and author Erik Kruger in an initiative called Inspired Change. So how does this all work and how can we inspire change? It's always a pleasure to speak to John Sanei and get his thoughts on topics such as this. John, good morning to you. Marcel, my co-host, said something a little earlier that's stuck with me. I'd like to start with that comment that we judge a society on how we care for and look after the most vulnerable in our society. And she was right in suggesting that should and does include animals as well. And how harshly should we be judging ourselves?
Well, I think we're in a transition phase between an old world and the new world. And I think there's a lot of upheaval. There's pain being felt by pretty much every living being right now as we go through this. So Erik and I are just trying to help one sector of this. I think there's help needed in all sectors, but we have a soft spot for animals, and it's our sort of inclination to want to help where we can.
And that's exactly what you and Erik seem to be doing. So you've partnered up with the Cape of Good Hope SPCA. I've been taking a look at the website. I read it very briefly before we spoke. I'm seeing there's something of a podcast coming up. You're going to be having an event on in the next few days. What's the aim there? What's the idea?
So we got an email asking for donations, and I reached out to the SPCA and said, look, let's try and do something more. Both Erik and I have got a pretty decent brand, and we can utilize our followers to try and just get more people to engage with the content that we create, which is always about trying to help us with tools to develop the perspective to see opportunities rather than challenges through a place of transition. So on the 14th of April at 7 p.m., what we're doing is we're doing a live recording of our podcast, and in it we'll be discussing the tools that are required to see this transition as a new opportunity and new renaissance of where we're going as humanity. Now, there's a great saying that says, when nothing is certain, anything is possible. And it's that real theme that we want to get across.
Let me talk to you a little bit about I'm going to ask you to put your futurist hat on, John. I think it's how a lot of people will know, quite rightly, your brand. Been a terrible year, hasn't it? COVID-19 has not gone away. And one of your quotes that always sticks out for me is, our going forward seems to be going in reverse at the moment. So the last couple of minutes I have with you, I mean, how... I imagine you'll address this in the podcast, on the podcast for the SPCA. But how do we start moving forward, considering what we've all been through?
Well, look, we're not finished yet, and we must realize that COVID-19 started off as a virus and has mutated to become a socio-economic changing agent. And so we're moving away from this industrial revolution towards a quantum dynamic digital world. And this is pretty much the same thing that happened when we went from the agricultural times to the industrial times. We are now moving from the industrial times to the digital times. And so in this transition, a lot of jobs are lost. A lot of old types of education are not relevant anymore. People don't fit and are not familiar with the new world that's happening and coming up. So this is a very difficult process and time for all of us. And so we must become okay with the fact that we're going through this transition, and the context of us going through it gets us to become clear that it's time to reinvent and time to rethink. I think the biggest problem that people are having is trying to hold on to the old world. And that normality is just familiarity, and we need to be able to let go of it to be able to reimagine a new world. So there isn't anybody that can tell us exactly what's going to be happening when we come out of COVID-19, but what we can manage is our behavior. And that's really what we want to get across as much as possible.
I'm sure you're going to do that as well with this podcast, this live recording of your podcast. I'm also seeing, John, you may have mentioned it, that all the proceeds from this, I'm seeing the spokesperson of Cape of Good Hope SPCA, all the proceeds from this, you're not taking a cent, are you? This is all going towards keeping these animals healthy and happy.
Of course we're not taking a cent. No way. This is absolutely for the animals. Both Erik and I have adopted from the SPCA and other charities. So 100% of the money is going to the SPCA. It's only 100 Rand. We're hoping that people donate a lot more. We just wanted to make it a simple entry level of 100 Rand. But please join us, because we're going to give you some real tools to try and get you as most optimistic as possible about the future, even though it seems hard and challenging. And then obviously all of the money is going to animals, to them to have a better life while they're inside the shelters, but also just to get people to realize that adopting an animal or a pet inside your home is one of the biggest gifts we could give ourselves, because they just are incredible beings and gifts.
They really are. John Sanei, I'm going to say thank you for your time this morning. Good luck to both you and Erik Kruger. The podcast is going to be on the 14th of April this year, 7 p.m. You can get tickets at Quicket if you go take a look at their website.